Let's just start off this video today by taking a moment to actually be grateful for our inner critic. Having gratitude for the self-awareness that we have. Of course, on the extreme end of having very high self-awareness, it can be really hard because often that means we have a very loud and harsh inner critic. But without that self-awareness, we would stay blind to our faults, to our problems, and we would become complacent in life. We would no longer have goals and desires. Although if you clicked on this video right now, likely you have felt the feeling before of just wishing that you could jump off of a cliff and leave your mind behind. Wishing that you could just shut off that inner voice or run away from it, never have to hear from it again. Because when we don't have a very healthy relationship with ourselves or with that voice in our head, we often self-deprecate and try to perfect ourselves all the time. Or we identify with what that inner critic is saying and we accept it as truth, rather than taking it as an insight as to what can be worked on. But there are also times when our inner critic is very useful, such as when change is necessary in our lives, or when we don't like who we are being or how we are living, or when we know that we deserve better than we are allowing. And if you're lucky, or maybe you've even done the inner work, then maybe you have a good balance. But many of us don't know when or how to stop the inner critic, or better yet, live with that inner critic. You should see the voice inside your head as your inner roommate. This person that is constantly talking and narrating your life that you kind of have to learn to live with and to deal with. And sometimes this inner roommate can be very useful, but other times we can get way too caught up in our thoughts that we identify with them. And we end up hating ourselves and never being good enough for ourselves. And we end up spending more time in our heads than in the present moment, even though the present moment is the only place where change can actually occur. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about living with that inner roommate, how to stop identifying with those thoughts so much, and also how to get a little more out of your head and into the present moment. And by the way, if you are new to my channel and this is the first video that you are ever seeing, hello, welcome. My name is Sierra and welcome to a safe space. On this channel, I share my insights with you. I share what I'm growing through and I give advice. But most of all, it is my goal to create a safe space where anyone can come to learn, to grow, and to talk about these types of topics that we may not feel safe to talk about in the real world. So thank you for joining me today. I'm glad to have you here, and let's go ahead and get into the gist of this video. In order to live with that inner voice inside your head and actually use it to benefit you rather than make you hate yourself or your life or make you want to jump off of a cliff, it is important to start observing and taking what it's teaching you, but not identifying with those words. It's important to ask yourself, why are you being so hard on yourself? The answer to that question can teach you a lot, because maybe being highly critical of yourself can mean that you really need to work on changing something in your life. Or maybe it's showing you that you need to learn to be more patient and understanding with yourself and to show yourself more love. When I say to not identify with those thoughts, what I really mean is that when you think something about yourself, when you're being critical of yourself, it may be showing you something that you need to work on, but it doesn't mean that you should label yourself with such negative traits, because that's an extremely limiting way of looking at yourself. For example, if you think things such as, I'm never good enough, or even I'm such an overthinker, or I'm such a perfectionist. Even those are very limiting ways to look at yourself. Don't identify with those labels, okay? Take what that inner chatter is showing you about yourself and realize what can be worked on. It's a blessing to have this kind of self-awareness. It's also important to recognize that there's a difference between wanting to improve some aspect of yourself and just never being good enough for yourself. Because sometimes the problem is not even you. The problem is that you are never good enough for yourself. And that's why you can't stop that inner critic. When you notice a mistake that you are making or a weakness that you have, try using that as positive reinforcement to change your life, to better yourself as a person, instead of self-deprecating or getting stuck in the past, because the past is gone. The past no longer matters. So there's no point in getting upset about it because every moment is a new moment to change. If anything, it's a blessing when we realize that there's something that we don't like about ourselves or about our lives. Because if we didn't realize that, then we would just be blindly living our lives going in a direction that really isn't in alignment with who we are. And along with that, everyone is just doing the best that they can with the awareness that they have. That's another reason why we should never get stuck on our past mistakes or hate ourselves for things that we have done, because we are only human and we are just doing our best. Even if it felt like we weren't doing our best in the past, that was our best with the awareness that we had at that time. But now we have different awareness so we can do better. Living with your inner voice is also about interrupting those negative thought patterns and redirecting them. This is something that I find myself doing all the time. I'm always kind of shifting my negative self-talk to positive self-talk. And that's a very positive change for me, because I think that I used to self-deprecate so much and I would have all of these negative thoughts about myself. And I think a part of beginning to love yourself and reprogramming those thoughts is not expecting those thoughts to never come up anymore, but having the self-love to actually redirect them to more positive, uplifting statements about yourself. For example, maybe saying to yourself, you know, actually, that is not true. I am trying my best. I have come so far. I have made so much progress. Change is not going to happen overnight. Or maybe I'm going through a lot right now. It's okay to make mistakes, you know? I'm just trying to cope. When I have that negative self-talk, I know that it's just past programming. I know that it's just a bad habit, but I know that I love myself and that I'm trying my best and that I'm making a lot of progress and that I'm not perfect and that all of the mistakes that I make are just a part of my human experience, and that is okay. And if you truly cannot say that about yourself, then you probably have a very unhealthy relationship with yourself. So if you are currently struggling with that, it sounds like you need to start your self-love journey, or maybe you already have and you need to go deeper within that self-love journey. Because when you love yourself, it's almost like that heals everything else in your life. It's important to realize that your inner voice cannot possibly be you, because if it was you, then you wouldn't be able to observe it. You can only observe things that are outside of yourself, because the voice inside your head is your mind. But who you really are is a soul. That is something that's really healing and important to realize when we are trying to no longer identify with those thoughts, is realizing that we literally are separate from those thoughts. Just because I think something does not mean that I am. In one of the best books of our time, in my opinion, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, in the beginning of the book, he talks about how he was able to go from being extremely depressed and hating his life and wanting to die to becoming the happiest person alive, from simply making the discovery that he was not his thoughts and being able to separate himself from the voice inside his head. He says, and I quote, "I cannot live with myself any longer. This was the thought that kept repeating itself in my mind. Then suddenly I became aware of what a peculiar thought it was. Am I one or two? If I cannot live with myself, there must be two of me, the I and the self that I cannot live with. Maybe, I thought, only one of them is real." And the last thing that I'm going to share with you in this video when it comes to living with that inner roommate of ours is try to start doing activities that involve more movement and less thinking, such as art or dancing, hiking, exercising, especially art, and things that you use your hands to do and things that are more visual. Because trust me, if you have a habit of overthinking and you just feel like you're never able to shut that voice up and all you want to do is to be more present, those kinds of activities will literally be the most refreshing, joyful, peaceful thing that you can do. So if you made it to the end of this video today, thank you for being here, and I want you to remember that you are not alone. I know that when you're in a room of other people, you may be thinking that you're the only person that's criticizing yourself so much. It may seem like so many other people love themselves so much because they appear confident, but I think the number one struggle in most people's lives is loving themselves. So if you watched this video today, thank you for showing up for yourself. If this video helped you in any way, I have another video called 5 ways to create a healthy relationship with yourself, and I will be putting that video in the description for anyone that just needs to hear that message right now. But other than that, thank you so much, and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to be a part of my safe space community, and I really hope that I see you in the next video.